Hey everyone, and happy holidays. It's Kendall.
And Josh from Mile Higher Media.
And as many of you guys know, we just recently launched our foundation, the Higher Hope Foundation. And now we are about to launch our annual matching program for the holiday season. So it's a great time to get involved, to give back, because your gift can go twice as far.
Thanks to all of your support thus far. We've already awarded several grants. We have several more in process, and we've got several exciting projects coming in 2025.
So if you are interested in getting involved and allowing us to do even more projects in the future, it is easier than ever to make a donation. You can do it right on our website, which is higherhope.org. And we've launched a new feature where you can create your own fundraiser. And you can access that by going to the Get Involved tab on our website.
So if you want your gift to be doubled right now through December 27th, Mile Higher Media will be matching all gifts.
And just as a reminder, 100% of your donations will go directly towards impacting victims of violent crime.
We just want to say a huge thank you in advance to everyone out there for all of your support, your generosity. And there's lots of other ways to help support the foundation. If you're not able to give a gift, just sharing our campaigns, the work that we're doing just helps get the word out and, helps us further our mission.
Yeah, truly, because of all of your support, so many people are getting the vital services and help that they need. And we're very, very grateful for your continued support. So thank you.
Hey, what is up, everybody?
And welcome back to Mile Higher Podcast, episode 326. I'm your host, Kendall.
And I'm Josh.
And we are joined by our production team, Janelle and Ian.
Hello.
What it do?
We've got a fun one for you today.
Yeah, we do.
On a very important topic.
This is, and it's not getting enough coverage. I mean, granted, there's a lot going on in the world, and people seem to not really be fazed by alien news these days. That shows you just how insane things are, that something like that could just kind of go under the radar. But we've got to do our annual update. Wasn't it about this time last year that we talked about the last congressional hearing?
I believe so. Yeah. When was David Grusch's?
July of 23.
Yeah, so I think that was the last one we did. It's a little over a year.
It's been a while. We haven't done a lot of alien content recently. I miss it. We need to get back into it.
Yeah, we do it over there on Lights Out.
Yeah, you guys do it more.
Well, we focus mostly on like abduction stories, scary aliens.
Well, it's all a little scary aliens, maybe, depending on how you look at it, depending on how you dissect.
If it's even aliens, you're implying interstellar visitors, which may or may not be the case.
Right.
I have some thoughts.
True. Yes.
Around the whole UFO, UAP, which UFO is the outdated term.
Correct.
That's been replaced by UAP, which as of 2022 was unidentified aerial phenomena, but they've since updated it now to unidentified anomalous phenomena. Because one of the things we'll be talking about today is unidentified underwater submersibles that we don't know what they are.
This is one of my favorite topics in the alien realm. Because of course they're underwater. Why wouldn't they be, right? Like if you were an alien and you were looking to do some research to spy on...
A lot of places to hide. A lot of places to hide.
Well, what percentage of our planet is covered in water? Isn't it like 80-something? 70? Why wouldn't you go down there? And then us dummies still haven't figured out how to live underwater or function underwater or do anything underwater. So they're like, perfect. We can go down there and hide. Makes total sense, right?
It would be a good place. Be a great place. What kind of technology you would need in order to accomplish that is beyond our realm of understanding at this point.
Right. But for an alien, they're looking at this blue planet and they're like, wow, the people who inhabit it down there, they don't go in the blue part. Perfect place for us.
I think this whole discussion around UFO, UAP, and it's been interesting to watch how it's evolved over time. So today we're going to be really diving into the most recent congressional hearings, and what updates were provided. Is there any new evidence? Anything groundbreaking that dropped? Because it seems like there's a lot of chitter chatter up on social media, but a lot of people don't have the time or just want to sit there and watch hours and hours of congressional hearing testimony.
Especially because a lot of it is filled with them just fighting and it's bullshit and, politics and whatever. So it's kind of hard to sift through and find the most interesting bits. So we thought we would do that for you. Ian, thank you so
Ian
much.
really headed
this up. The real hard work on this one.
I love cspan.com, so it was no problem for me. It was all good.
How long? It was 2 hours, right?
The AARO one was nice and 30 minutes long, no big deal. But then this one was close to 3 hours, actually.
Damn.
Like the main one with everyone we're talking about.
So he's pulled everything that was of value, of interest, and we're going to kind of break that down for some of you who haven't heard of it or just didn't have the time or interest to sift through all that yourself, because there's some interesting things.
There is, but there's still a lot we don't know. And
it's a lot of like dodging.
Well, it's so obvious at this point how little, at least the public-facing members of our government actually know about this subject. And, we've talked about this over the years quite a bit, about these unacknowledged, special access projects and, a lot of this behind the scenes cover up going on by the government, and to kind of have it start, sort of trickling out that our assumptions were right all along, that there was an organized, attempt to keep this under wraps for a long, long time. And really, I think we could credit a lot of this to Tom DeLonge and to the Stars, the company that he started went back in, it was 2018, I believe.
Yeah, right around the time we started our show, it was just launching.
Yeah, it was like right around that time.
Tom's the man.
When we first got the, declassified UFO video that was acknowledged by the Pentagon. And, when that kind of broke open, I think he really gets a lot of credit for kind of spurring this disclosure around the UFO UAP topic to really begin. But then it really slowed down to the point where it was like we had these couple of videos, and now the only new real legitimate video that we have now comes from whistleblowers and leaks given to people like George Knapp or Jeremy Corbell, people who are, not affiliated with the government, but people who are affiliated or were affiliated are starting to leak stuff. And I think the number one issue here comes back to whistleblowers. Yeah. Because David Grusch, that was such a big deal last year, because David Grusch, here's a guy, very, very credible, you're like, why would this guy lie? He's also under oath. Yep. He's testifying about all of these things that he's seen, all these people that he's talked to that have had these insanely strange experiences with not only materials, but craft to even potentially bodies of some sort or non-human biologics that we'll talk about here in a little bit again. But then it just kind of really got quiet for a while. Yeah. Until these hearings kind of popped up. So we're going to kind of catch you up on where things left off to where things are right now, and kind of maybe present some of our own thoughts around it too, because I think some people are kind of getting tunnel vision on this subject and kind of thinking about it one track, that we're dealing with extraterrestrials potentially, so intelligent life from elsewhere in the universe. But I think there's other possibilities here that make a lot of sense that could also explain some of this UAP activity. So with that being said,
also before that, I just wanted to say, if you didn't catch our episode on David Grusch's testimony, it's really, really interesting. And we'll have that linked for you guys below too from last year, because a lot came out in that.
Yeah, which we'll kind of cover a little bit of it. But if you want the real deep dive on it, definitely watch that, maybe even before you continue with this. But anyways, on Wednesday, November 13th, 2024, there was a Joint House Oversight Committee that was brought together regarding the unidentified anomalous phenomenon and government accountability surrounding its secrecy. Because why? It's just this is such a big thing to keep secret. And I think the majority of us are like, why are they not telling us? Why not just come out and tell us and show us what they have? We all want to believe, right? Or some of us fully believe And why not just present us the evidence? And we'll talk about that.
So parents out there, you know how difficult it can be to make sure that your kids are getting proper nutrition, and a vitamin is going to make all the difference. However, there's a lot of vitamins on the market that have a lot of sugar or kids just don't like because they taste nasty. So I want to tell you today about Hiya. Because like I said, typical children's vitamins are basically candy in disguise. A lot of them are filled with 2 teaspoons of sugar, unhealthy chemicals, and other gummy additives growing kids just should not be eating. And that's why Hiya created a super-powered chewable vitamin. While many children's vitamins are filled with 5 grams of sugar known to contribute to a variety of health issues, Hiya is made with 0 sugar and 0 gummy additives, but they still taste great. So it's perfect if you have a picky eater. They're sweetened with monk fruit, and they're pressed with a blend of 12 organic fruits and veggies, and then supercharged with 15 essential vitamins and minerals, including vitamin D, vitamin B12, C, zinc, folate, and many others to help support the immune system, which is so important for kids. Also energy, brain function, mood, concentration, teeth, bones, and more. It's non-GMO, vegan, dairy-free, allergy-free, gelatin-free, nut-free, and everything else that you can imagine. And what's also really cool about Hiya is they come in glass jars that are fun colors, and then your kids actually can decorate them with stickers that are included. And then they send you refills every month, and you just refill the jar, so it's also more sustainable. And are you tired of battling with your kids to eat their greens? Hiya now has Kids Daily Greens Plus Superfoods, which is a chocolate-flavored greens powder designed specifically for kids, packed with 55 whole food ingredients to support brain power, development, digestion. And all you got to do is scoop, shake, and sip with milk or any non-dairy beverage for a delicious and nutritious boost that your kids are actually going to enjoy. And we've worked out a special deal with Hiya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. To claim this deal, you must go to hiyahealth.com/milehigher. This deal is not available on the regular website. Just go to hiyahealth.com/milehigher and get your kids the full body nourishment that they need to grow into healthy adults.
But this comes over a year after retired Major David Grusch testified before a similar committee. David Grusch, who was formerly a member of the previously secret Pentagon program called the UAP Task Force, alleged that not only did the government have a hidden crash retrieval program, so for, these UAPs that crashed, they went out and recovered what was left, but they also had reverse engineered the UAPs for their own military and scientific advancements, and had also recovered, quote, non-human biologics from the crash sites. And I wanted to just play this quick little clip because this is just probably the most profound moment from the hearing last year.
Yeah.
So this is David Grusch.
You've stated that the government is in possession of potentially non-human spacecraft. Based on your experience and extensive conversations with experts, do you believe our government has made contact with intelligent extraterrestrials?
Something I can't discuss in public setting.
Okay,
yes.
I can't ask when you think this occurred.
Cool. Keep going here.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
And was this documentary evidence, this video, photos, eyewitness? Like, how would that be determined?
The specific documentation I would have to talk to you in a skiff about.
So that's a pretty big piece of news. That's the first time that we've heard somebody from the government confirm.
Under oath.
Again, this is their testimony. We don't have physical, tangible proof of this yet, but based on this person who seems very credible, they have retrieved craft as well as this non-human biologics, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what does that mean exactly? And I think that can mean a couple different things. I think most of our minds go directly to extraterrestrials, but I think there's other possibilities as well. Because again, he just said non-human. So that could mean potentially like a droid, machine, AI-based being as well, as opposed to something that is, extraterrestrial. So just something.
But if it's referred to as biologics, how could it be a robot or AI or anything like that?
What if it was like some type of cloned situation where it's like a cyborg or something, where it's like partly
Would that
some type
still
of
be that would be considered biologics though?
Yeah, I think it could potentially be that. But again, I think there's a lot of different ways that you could take that. So kind of a big deal. So Grusch's UAP Task Force was ultimately renamed the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO for short. And they basically refitted it to become a civilian-facing government organization for current and former government employees, service members, and contractors to submit UAP reports for further investigation. Because for the last 100 years, a lot of people who have had experiences with UAPs were scared to speak out about it and didn't have anywhere to report these things that they were seeing or experiencing. It just wasn't available. They didn't know who to talk to about it. So the first step was kind of organizing a process in which people could report the encounters and these UAPs that they were seeing and start tracking it and start gathering data. In May 2024, AARO released its first report on UAP, stating that there was no evidence that any non-human or extraterrestrial intelligence had visited Earth, that the U.S. government had never reverse engineered extraterrestrial craft, and most importantly, that the Pentagon was not hiding any secret programs from Congress. So basically refuting everything, that we were just saying. So it's been very confusing because every time it feels like we've made progress in this, then somebody in the government's like, well, we looked into it and there's nothing there that backs it up. So basically refuting everything that David Grusch is testifying to, that these government programs are like, no, we looked at everything. There is nothing that's non-human here. There's nothing extraterrestrial here. There's none of that. So, and this has been the constant battle over the past 100 years and why it's like, who do we trust? Who do we listen to?
However, AARO's report included a 63-page history of the U.S. government's investigation into UAP, which was full of factual errors and sourced directly from sites like Wikipedia, baby. Former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Christopher Mellon wrote a critique of AARO's report and said, quote, "This is the most error-ridden and unsatisfactory government report I can recall reading during or after decades of government service."
That's saying a lot.
Yeah, it is.
Which just, I think it says everything. That this is so poorly written and poorly researched. They probably had some aide or intern write it up for them or something.
Shit together, yeah.
Like, oh, this is all silly. Let's just, refute it and be done with it.
So in response to this, journalist Michael Shellenberger and private researcher John Greenwald teamed up to write a 117-page timeline of the United States government's research, investigation, and involvement with UAPs using previously classified documents that Greenwald had FOIA requested for his digital archive, which is called the Black Vault.
Which has an insane amount of documents that he's FOIA'd over the years.
Just massive.
Like 2 million plus documents.
So crazy. And in his write-up surrounding the UAP timeline, he alleged that the Department of Defense had a secret special access group through the White House called Immaculate Constellation. And this is an umbrella program for all of the DoD's secret UAP groups. Now, this was a term that was new to me. Had you heard of this before?
No, this was a new piece of information.
Yeah. Okay, so this came out during the hearing.
That he testified to.
Immaculate Constellation. They always come up with some fun names, I will say.
It's my favorite government name ever. It's so sick. It's up there with Operation Overlord. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I kept trying to, when we were talking about this last night, I was trying to recall, prepping for the episode to Josh, and I kept calling it Miraculous Constellation or Conception. But Congress became interested because the Pentagon and the DoD failed 6 consecutive audits, and in fact, has never passed a single audit due to billions of dollars of missing funds, which is something that we have talked about on the show in the past. It's interesting that is something that I think most Americans don't know about. And there's obviously a lot of our top political talking points are very important, but it's so interesting to me that this almost never gets brought up, especially in today's day and age of, politics on both sides, people questioning overspending and misuse of funds,
right?
But no one ever brings up the Pentagon.
Right. We need funding for so many government programs that are vital to all of our everyday life. Yet, for some reason, the Pentagon gets to, funds just seem to vanish over there.
Whoopsie.
And
whatever.
Nobody has any idea where they went.
No.
Which is crazy. And I think the leading, and I think it's pretty obvious, but the leading theory is the money is being utilized by the military-industrial complex, because the military-industrial complex and our government, a lot of people say that the military-industrial complex is actually what controls and runs our government. So if you ever wonder who's actually behind the scenes running the government, it's the military-industrial complex. It's the largest corporation in the entire world. I mean, the amount of money that fuels that machine would be in the billions of dollars. And so within the military-industrial complex, that's where you find these special access UAP groups that are working on back engineering this technology or developing new technologies.
And this is taxpayer dollars that we have no idea how it's used, where it went, and it never really seems to be something that people bring up.
Well, and again, their point is, well, it's in the best interest of national security that the American people don't know what's actually going on.
And maybe that's the case, but that's also a nice excuse.
I get that to a certain extent, but if there is, active research and back engineering of potentially extraterrestrial technology or biologics, then I think we'd all like to know.
Yeah.
At least.
I think we deserve to know.
But then again, I think it comes back to, well, maybe we can know, but do they want all of our adversaries to know? And again, that's always what they go back to is we're doing this, we have this secrecy in order to keep America safe from our adversaries. So, but again, everybody's got their opinion on that.
Yeah. And I guess you can have whatever opinion since we don't actually know. But if these unaccounted for funds were going to these special access groups, then the Pentagon would be using the White House as a loophole to avoid reporting these groups and programs to Congress, which is obviously a potential overstep of their constitutional powers. And side note, as of last week, the Pentagon has failed its 7th consecutive audit. Pretty fucking awesome, yeah.
Because they're failing the audit because they can't audit what they need to audit.
Yeah.
That's why they're failing. It's a pass or fail because they won't let them get access to anything that leads them where that money's going,
Yep.
So this hearing was convened so that Shellenberger and other government officials could inform Congress on the history, scope, and powers of the Pentagon and the Department of Defense in hiding their UAP programs from the legislative branch. A few days later, current AARO head John Kosloski testified before members of the Senate Armed Services Subcommittee on emerging threats and capabilities in 2 different hearings, one closed and one public. In the public hearing, Kosloski explained the methods behind AARO's investigation, then used the 3 famous UAP videos, which if you've watched this show, you've seen them on here, including the infamous Go Fast video, to walk the public through AARO's methodologies. And we'll explain the most significant findings throughout both hearings, and we'll even walk you through Shellenberger and Greenwald's timeline of government involvement in UAP, and even discuss some new evidence of UAP not mentioned in the hearing. Kendall is so incredibly happy that I found Jack Black, because for the longest time, I'd be stealing her body care products. I mean, women's body care products. Some of the best stuff out there, and it smells good. And I feel like it just works better than a lot of the other brands that I used to buy. But now, thanks to Jack Black, who's sponsoring this episode, they offer a full line of men's products for every need, from cleansing to moisturizing to beard care. You name it, they've got a product for it. So you can treat yourself with some luxury right at home. And just in time for the holidays, Jack Black's gifting sets are available, so I can be well groomed for the holidays. And I love that they have their products in a full size for that everyday use, but then they have travel sizes as well. So you can bring those high quality products with you on any adventure you go on from here on out, pretty much. I love the way that Jack Black products smell, especially their deodorant, the original Pit Boss. I put that baby on every morning and my pits smell fresh all day long. So have your man smelling better than ever with Jack Black, baby. This holiday season, if you want simple, effective products that help you look your best or your man look their best, you need Jack Black. Head to getjackblack.com/milehigher. And if you use code milehigher, get 10% off your order. Once again, that's jackblack.com/milehigher for 10% off. And make sure you use our promo code milehigher so that they know that I sent you. Okay, please do it. So who joined Michael Shellenberger at this hearing? Well, he was joined by Dr. Tim Gallaudet, a retired Navy Rear Admiral and head meteorologist of the Navy, as well as former Department of Defense official Luis Elizondo, or Lou Elizondo, I'll just probably call him Lou, that's what he goes by, and Michael Gold, formerly a NASA associate and member of NASA's UAP independent study team. Now, Gold's written testimony focused on combating the stigma surrounding UAP investigations, and he states that as NASA is an organization that operates on data alone, the stigmatization of data reporting surrounding UAP harms scientific inquiry and discovery on the subject, which I totally agree with. He focused his testimony on NASA, stating how they can use their scientific reputation to bolster support for UAP research as a legitimate field of scientific study, rather than just this fringe, pseudo science interest that it's been for so long. He also believes that NASA's archive of interstellar anomalies could provide helpful information when properly investigating UAP reports, which makes total sense. Why wouldn't you get an agency like NASA to help study UFOs and UAPs? Like, it just doesn't, like, if you remember that interstellar object that came through our solar system. I think they nicknamed it Uma, yeah. I forget what year exactly that was, but they were like, oh, it's just a piece of
2019 maybe
space rock coming through. But there was other people that believed maybe it was some type of interstellar visitor kind of coming through, checking out our solar system. And NASA was, obviously a part of spotting that coming through. So you would think, why wouldn't the two agencies get together and, put the most brilliant minds together and all the data they've collected to try to figure out what these things are? Now, Gallaudet's testimony is very interesting. He provides an anecdote about his experience with the government cover-ups of UAPs. He states in his testimony that he was participating in a pre-deployment naval exercise off the East Coast when he received a very strange email. And we'll show you a clip of Mr. Timothy Gallaudet.
It included the USS Theodore Roosevelt Carrier Strike Group, and this exercise was overseen by the United States Fleet Forces Command, led by a 4-star admiral who at the time was also my superior officer. During this exercise, I received an email on Navy's secure network from the operations officer of U.S. Fleet Forces Command. The email was addressed to all the subordinate commanders, and the subject line read in all capital letters, "Urgent Safety of Flight Issue." The text of the email was brief but alarming, with words to the effect, "If any of you know what these are, tell me ASAP. We are having multiple near mid-air collisions, and if we do not resolve this soon, we are going to have to shut down the exercise." Attached to the email is what is now known as the Go Fast video, captured on the forward-looking infrared sensor of one of the Navy F-A-18 aircraft participating in the exercise. The now declassified video showed an unidentified object exhibiting flight and structural characteristics unlike anything in our arsenal. The implication of the email was clear. The author was asking whether any of the recipients were aware of classified technology demonstrations that could explain these objects. Because the DoD policy is to rigorously deconflict such demonstrations with live exercises, I was confident this was not the case. The very next day, that email disappeared from my account and those of the other recipients, without explanation. Moreover, the commander of Fleet Forces Command and the operations officer never discussed the subject. Even during weekly meetings specifically designed to address issues affecting exercises like the one in which the Theodore Roosevelt Strike Group was participating. This lack of follow-up was very concerning to me. As the Navy's chief meteorologist at the time, I was responsible for reducing safety of flight risks. Yet it appeared to me that no one at the flag officer level was addressing the safety risk posed by UAPs. Instead, pilots were left to mitigate these threats on their own without guidance or support. I concluded that the UAP information must have been classified within a special access program managed by an intelligence agency. That is a compartmented program that even senior officials, including myself, were not read into. Last year's UAP hearing before this oversight committee confirmed that UAP-related information is being withheld from senior officials and members of Congress. And just this week, I learned from former DoD official Chris Mellon that satellite imagery of UAP from a few years ago still has not been shared with Congress. Equally concerning, last year's UAP hearing also revealed that elements of the government are engaged in a disinformation campaign to include personal attacks designed to discredit UAP whistleblowers. Having never signed a non-disclosure agreement regarding UAPs, and now as a private citizen, I've become an advocate for greater UAP transparency from the government. The continued overclassification surrounding UAPs has not only hindered our ability to effectively address these phenomena, but has also eroded trust in our institutions. While I applaud previous bipartisan legislation passed by Congress concerning UAPs, a more comprehensive approach is needed to address the broader implication of UAP on public safety and national security, as well as the socioeconomic opportunities that open UAP research could unlock.
So just as a reminder, let's take a look at that Go Fast video again.
Yeah.
It's been a little while since we watched it.
Memorized.
So you see the object flying,
It's kind of hard to see.
but then he locks onto it with his spur cannon.
No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Look at it fly.
So cool.
I love that video because you
too.
can clearly tell from the pilots that they're like, holy shit, what is this thing? Like, we've never seen something move so quickly the way that it was maneuvering. And so the other thing with this too is that there wasn't just one, and this wasn't just a one-time incident. There was a bunch of these that were, and the thing about it too is that they were nearly colliding with aircraft. Like as you just heard Gallaudet talk about,
earlier,
that they were almost shut the naval exercise down because these things were getting so close to our aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
But then somehow and then would get close and then just would shoot off. Yeah. So then here's the other video, the classified video called the gimbal.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA.
Whole fleet. Yeah.
My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
And see it rotating too.
So cool.
That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is an LNS, dude. Well, if there's look at that thing. It's rotating.
I love how they started by being like, what the fuck is that thing?
Yeah, I know.
So cool.
Mm-hmm. It'd be so interesting to see that in person like that.
And mind you, these guys are flying around the skies at high rates of speed, and for them to be like, holy shit, just so wowed by what they're seeing and so baffled by these things is, I don't know, kind of gives me goosebumps. It's like, wow.
Yeah, me too.
I
really thought
they saying?
After those videos came out that it was going to just be like a domino effect, that so much would come out after that. And, by 2025, we would know so much more than we do. It's crazy. We're still pretty behind, but it is interesting how it seems like the general public people are much more open to the idea. It's almost like you're a conspiracy theorist if you don't believe aliens exist or that these crafts are visiting and stuff. It's like most people understand that this is happening.
Yeah, well, and I think people are split on, are these things from outer space? Are they interstellar craft?
Yeah.
Or is there some other explanation for it?
Right.
Because there's a lot of people that don't think that they're extraterrestrial related.
What do you think?
That life exists out in the universe, but that ETs have not visited Earth yet, have not come here. My leading theory for UFOs, UAPs. So one of the interesting things too that I think is kind of important to consider is that, for the longest time we called these things UFOs, unidentified flying object, but this new term, unidentified anomalous phenomena, I think is a more fitting term because it's all encompassing. Basically, it includes unidentified flying objects, but then it includes strange lights, strange sounds.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably throw in paranormal activity into that as well. There's so many stories of soldiers who have had paranormal experiences of strange lights, orbs, you name it. Every type of paranormal activity, there's been a military service member who's experienced it. And so I think that having this more all-encompassing term is very interesting. And I'm very split on the idea that these are extraterrestrials. I tend to land on the side of the interdimensional UFO hypothesis, which is that these UAPs are interdimensional, that these aren't necessarily aliens visiting from other star systems, but rather these are some type of entity, is the word I would use, entities that exist within our reality to some extent, just on a different dimension, different
Plane.
frequency.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that believe that because some of the characteristics are pretty interesting, especially the ability to, as we'll see in a video later on, some of the abilities that they show are very similar to, say, like a spirit or ghost sighting or something like that. There's a lot of like similarities between some of these UAP sightings and then, say, somebody who has an experience with a ghost or a spirit or a shadow figure or something like that. And that maybe these entities are also, biological beings as well, but they exist just in a different dimension, but they're here. Like they didn't traverse the universe here. They just exist on a different timeline.
God, that is so hard to wrap your mind around. Kind of followed that.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, which is why you should read Book of the New Sun. It'll help you.
Oh my God, Ian.
It taps on the subject, but I won't say much else because Tom is reading, and I don't want to spoil it anymore for him.
It sounds like that book just covers everything.
It does. It really does. Yeah.
I need to check it out.
Because I think there is. I'm not saying that there isn't a possibility that we have not been visited by extraterrestrials yet, but I think when looking at the majority of the evidence that we're shown and how it all kind of is interconnected, I think the interdimensional hypothesis is a little bit more compelling. But what do I know at the end of the day? But let's talk about Lou Elizondo's testimony, because he's a guy who I find very, very interesting. A lot of people give him a lot of shit, but
Yeah.
I think
It's a little controversial. But
I've watched a lot of his interviews, and I don't know.
he's certainly interesting to listen to.
He could be a disinformation agent, but I find him pretty compelling and pretty credible, and I somewhat trust what he says. I'd love to get him on the show. We should reach out and
That'd be
see if we
cool.
can get Lou on the show, because he's a very interesting guy who understands this stuff far better than we do. But anyway, here's what Lou had to say.
Yeah, his testimony reflected earlier statements from Grusch's hearing last year, reiterating that the government is aware of UAP and that advanced technologies are monitoring our military installations worldwide. Just something we've talked about a lot over the years. I think it makes a whole lot of sense. And here are a few clips of Elizondo responding to a question surrounding the intensity of new UAP sightings. Start with this one.
Mr. Elizondo, you just said something interesting. You said they don't seem to be hiding. The UAP sightings are becoming increasingly brash, if you will. And, we've been hearing about these for years, but they've generally been isolated and not as consistent and over critical military installations. Would you say that's fair? Is this becoming increasingly often? Is it happening more and more?
Great question, sir. Let me see if I can answer this for you. Certainly, there seems to be some indication that they're being provocative, meaning that they're, in some cases, literally splitting aircraft formations right down the middle. So that's an air safety issue. The question is it the frequency increasing? And the response is it depends. Yes, it's possible that there is an increase in frequency, but it's also possible that there's heightened awareness now, and there's also more pervasiveness of technology out there that's collecting this information and that can record this information. So we're not quite sure yet if it's actually an increase in numbers of these events, or is it that we have better equipment now that to record these things, and we have a better ability, if you will, to analyze these things.
And that's my next question. It seems that a lot of these sightings occur near military installations. Do you think that these UAPs are intentionally targeting military installations, or do you think that we have increased abilities to monitor surrounding the military installations?
Sir, maybe both. Part of my concern is we have something in the Department of Defense and the intelligence community called IPB, Initial Preparations of the Battle Space. And we use equities like ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and other type of equities and technologies to prep the battle space. And certainly, if I was wearing my national security hat, even if there was a 2% chance that there was some sort of hostile intent here, that's 2% higher than we really can accept. And so we must figure out, there's a calculus, capabilities versus intent, in order to identify if something is a national security threat. We've seen some of the capabilities, yet we have no idea the intent. And so this is why this discussion is somewhat, I think, problematic from a governmental perspective, because we have no idea. Let me be clear. UAP are real. Advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe. Furthermore, the U.S. is in possession of UAP technologies, as are some of our adversaries. I believe we are in the midst of a multi-decade secretive arms race, one funded by misallocated taxpayer dollars and hidden from our elected representatives and oversight bodies. For many years, I was entrusted with protecting some of our nation's most sensitive programs. In my last position, I managed a special access program on behalf of the White House and the National Security Council. As such, I appreciate the need to protect certain sensitive intelligence and military information. I consider my oath to protect secrets as sacred, and I will always put the safety of the American people first. A small cadre within our own government involved in the UAP topic has created a culture of suppression and intimidation that I've personally been victim to, along with many of my former colleagues. This includes unwarranted criminal investigations, harassment, and efforts to destroy one's credibility. Most Americans would be shocked to learn that the Pentagon's very own Public Affairs Office openly employs a professional psychological operations officer as the singular point of contact for any UAP-related inquiries from citizens and the media. This is unacceptable. Many of my former colleagues and I have provided classified testimony to both the Department of Defense and the Intelligence Community Inspector General, and many of us have subsequently been targeted by this cabal with threats to our careers, our security clearances, and even our lives. This is not hyperbole, but a genuine fact, and this is wrong. These whistleblowers should be encouraged to come forward in ways that protect them against any forms of retaliation. Policies and procedures should ensure that protection, and for those who refuse to cooperate, it is up to the members of this committee and the other lawmakers to wield their subpoena power against hostile witnesses and prevent additional government funding to those UAP efforts that remain hidden from congressional oversight. To the incoming administration and Congress, I say to you, we need immediate public transparency, and this hearing is an important step on that journey. If we approach the UAP topic in the same way as we, as Americans, have met other challenges, we can restore our faith in our government institutions. Together, we can usher in a new era of accountable government and scientific discovery. I believe that we as Americans can handle the truth, and I also believe the world deserves it.
I think most people in the world probably can agree with what he's saying and want exactly that. But that, at the same time, people think everyone just knows that that's never going to happen. I mean, everything he's just saying is so far from reality. Unfortunately, we're never going to get that type of transparency.
Hate to agree with you, but I do. It's these types of hearings that remind you just how little in control of things our elected officials are.
Yep.
Like how little they still play a big role in other ways, but in the really, really, really important, deep-rooted issues, which ultimately lead you to why everything else is fucked up.
Right.
Yeah. It's just like, it's very discouraging because you're like, what do we do?
Oh,
We're powerless against these unknown forces.
Yes.
I mean, so much so that the people who work in these agencies, in the military, fear for their own lives.
Right.
Whistleblowers fear of retaliation, which is a very real thing and a very interesting thing to dig into. There's
that could be a whole another
and
episode.
Lou in other interviews he's not said it outright, but he has hinted at that there have been whistleblowers, so military members, intelligence agency members who have potentially even been killed, murdered.
Oh yeah.
For coming forward,
which
is crazy. If you ever worry about the safety of your home or your family, there's no better time to act than right now, because Simply Safe is extending its massive Black Friday deal for our listeners. You can get 50% off a new Simply Safe security system. Simply Safe is home security that we trust, and multiple people here in our office use Simply Safe, and we all Absolutely love it. We've all been using it for a long time now. It gives us the peace of mind that we're looking for, knowing that our home is protected 24/7. You get 50% off today just by visiting simplysafe.com/milehigher. And this is your last chance to protect your home at Simply Safe's lowest prices of the year. It is a truly customizable system for homes of all sizes. I love that through their website, they'll help walk you through exactly the right size of system that you need. And it is so easy to install, you can even do it yourself. I mean, it is that simple. Not only that, their indoor, outdoor cameras are some of the best that I've ever seen as far as the clarity, the quality of the footage is top notch. And it just gives you that peace of mind, you know, if you leave for vacation or maybe you're just running to the store and you want to check in on your pets. Simply Safe cameras are definitely some of the best out there. Simply Safe also has Active Guard outdoor protection, which changes the game by preventing crime before it even happens. For example, if someone's lurking around or acting suspiciously, those agents can see them in real time and even talk to them directly, set off your spotlights, or even call the police before they've even had a chance to break in. Plus, there's no long-term contracts, no cancellation fees, and it's around $1 a day for all of this protection, which is an unbeatable deal. I can assure you, you won't find anywhere else. Simply Safe is extending its massive Black Friday deal for our listeners. This week only, you can get 50% off any new system with a select professional monitoring plan. This is your last chance, so take advantage of their best offer of the year. Head to simplysafe.com/milehigher. That's simplysafe.com/milehigher, because there's no safe like Simply Safe.
So Shellenberger's testimony focused on the alleged Immaculate Constellation program or project that's headed by the DoD, allegedly done through special access groups in the White House to maintain secrecy. And while Shellenberger does not claim to have definitive proof that the White House is hiding alien technology and bodies from us, he has stated through Immaculate Constellation, the White House has hundreds, potentially thousands of pieces of visual evidence pointing to the existence of UAP, far more than AARO is willing to admit, and makes a whole lot of sense, right? I mean, I think pretty much everyone can believe that to be true. Now, of course, the DoD has stated that these videos have not been declassified as it would potentially harm the secrecy of our military sensors at installations across the globe, which might be the case, but I think it's also, a kind of convenient
I don't know, though.
excuse.
I've heard Lou Elizonda talk about this in more detail, and he was like, the way he explained it was really, it convinced me because it makes sense. Not only, so he has said that there are dozens of videos, high def photograph. I mean, they have serious evidence that he has seen that he's like, it would, anybody who's on the fence about this issue would be like, oh my God, this is insane. Like, they have very, very, very good
video proof,
data and video photo evidence of these things. The issue is, and the reason why they don't declassify them is because it is a national security risk, because it's so good. And some of these things could potentially be over spaces where we were never supposed to be or be looking at. That if we declassify this to the American public, obviously everybody else in the world's going to see them as well. And that's going to tip off, our adversaries who are like, wait, they were monitoring our airspace, or they had something
that
here.
Makes sense. And I just think it's a part of it. I think there's a lot of other reasons as well.
Probably,
they don't want to have mass.
But I think that's a pretty good reason for why they don't release some of the most compelling evidence that they have.
You have to roll it out carefully.
Yeah.
If they ever even can.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, he also points to an alleged recording of a UAP off of the coast of Kuwait, which was shot with a regular high-definition, full-color camera that does not reveal any classified U.S. technology aside from the UAP itself.
And he actually talks about this in the hearing. So let's hear from him.
Take a listen.
One of Congress's most important responsibilities is oversight of the executive branch in general and the military and intelligence community in particular. Unfortunately, there is a growing body of evidence that the U.S. government is not being transparent about what it knows about unidentified anomalous phenomena, and that elements within the military and the IC are in violation of their constitutional duty to notify Congress of their operations. President-elect Donald Trump and former President Barack Obama have both said that the government has information about UAPs that it has not released. There are other explanations for UAPs than that they represent a new form of life or non-human life. Current dominant alternative theories, including those put forward by AARO, are that UAPs are some kind of natural phenomena we don't yet understand, like ball lightning or plasma. They could also be part of some new U.S. or foreign government weapons programs, such as drones, aircraft, balloons, CGI, hoaxes, or birds. Whatever UAPs are, Congress must be informed, as must the people of the United States. We have a right to know what UAPs are, no matter what they are. This is the report that says the executive branch has been managing UAP, NHI issues without congressional knowledge, oversight, or authorization for some time, quite possibly decades. Furthermore, these individuals have revealed the name of an active and highly secretive DoD unacknowledged special access program, or USAP. The source of that document told me, that the USAP is a strategic intelligence program that is part of the U.S. military family of long-standing, highly sensitive programs dealing with various aspects of the UAP problem. Immaculate Constellation includes high-quality imagery intelligence and measurement and signature intelligence of UAPs, the whistleblower's report adds. The sources of this intelligence are a blend of directed and incidental collection capabilities, positioned in low Earth orbit, the upper atmosphere, as well as military and civilian aviation altitudes and maritime environments. The report to Congress details in detail various UAPs, including spheres, orbs, disks, saucers, ovals, triangles, boomerang, arrowhead, and irregular organic. The report describes various incidents found in the human intelligence databases. One involved orbs surrounding and forcing an F-22 out of its patrol area. In another incident, the crew of a Navy aircraft carrier watched a small orange-red sphere rapidly descend from a high altitude of 100 to 200 yards directly above the flight deck of the CVN, or aircraft carrier. And since my reporting on this Immaculate Constellation last month, another source came forward who told me that they saw a roughly 13-minute long, high-definition, full-color video of a white orb UAP coming out of the ocean approximately 20 miles off the coast of Kuwait. It was filmed from a helicopter. Then halfway through the video, the person said the orb is joined by another orb that briefly comes into the frame from the left before rapidly moving again out of the frame. The person discovered the video on SIPR, the Secure Internet Protocol Router Network, which the DoD uses to transmit classified information. The DoD organization AARO has been labeling many documents with a B7 exemption, which Greenwald says does not make any sense. They're stating that anything AARO does is involved in law enforcement investigation, which allows AARO to not release it. Greenwald says the DoD has denied the existence of a UAP and ATIP-related records on multiple occasions, only to acknowledge them after an appeal was filed. He added that the Naval Air Systems Command in March 2022 stated they found no additional UAP videos. It seemed strange that they had 3 and only those 3, but other requests had been filed by the Black Vault, that's John Greenwald's group, to seek out more places UAPs might be hiding. Then in September 2022, the Navy admitted that the UAP-related videos and photographs existed, but denied the request in full for their release, saying that the requested videos contain sensitive information that are classified and exempt from disclosure.
So later on in that clip that we just showed you, it goes on for quite a while, but Shellenberger ends up holding up a page which shows a highly redacted and classified report from AARO's predecessor. Not only are the number of reports, number of years, and potential explanations redacted, but a massive amount of page space is just completely blacked out. And we do not know if it is text or photographs that the government has blacked out. So who knows what could be there? It could be diagrams. It could be all sorts of interesting things. And we'll put some up on the screen as we go forward here, so you can kind of take a look at what some of those look like. But while we cannot guess the number of reports, we can provide redacted explanations. The report only reveals unknown weather or natural phenomena, meaning the other explanations are likely classified as U.S. technology or unknown foreign tech, and potentially, of course, some type of extraterrestrial craft. Shellenberger's report on Immaculate Constellation also mentioned that the Pentagon is aware of an organic UAP that shows signs of life and is often in the shape of a jellyfish. And while additional questioning following the written testimonies didn't reveal much else, kind of echoing the Grusch hearing, there's a lot of stuff that kind of gets resaid. And there was just a lot of stuff that was like, we'd have to discuss this in a closed session instead of in a public session or in a SCIF. for a lot of the questions that were asked, unfortunately. But there was a particular focus on trans-medium craft, which is one of the characteristics of UAP. So basically, a craft that's able to enter different types of environments without having to land or change the structure of it. It can just go from air to water to land in the blink of an eye. So that leads us to USO, or unidentified submersible objects. And since so much of the released government footage focuses on objects seen over the ocean or bodies of water, more and more questions have focused on the submersible abilities of these captured objects. So here's a little bit of the testimony surrounding USOs.
Have you specifically had any experience with submersible objects?
Sir, I've no personal experience, but I've had witnesses on submarines come to me and say they've seen on sonar data.
Correct. Okay.
How
would you characterize those, and how do they move?
The one instance that was revealed to me was in the 80s on a nuclear-powered submarine, a ballistic missile submarine, that the object exhibited the characteristics of a Russian torpedo in terms of its speed of movement and closing rate with the submarine, and then it slowed and followed the submarine slowly in its wake for a period of minutes, and then rapidly exited the scene. And nothing that we know of and technology-wise could replicate that.
Where might one find the non-public version of the author's report?
I don't know the answer to that.
Would that be with the Department of Defense?
I don't know.
But you do know the author?
I do.
You know what the author's sources were?
The author's sources are described in the report. These databases, the Immaculate Constellation.
Right, but you expressed some confidence in the sources.
I would.
Earlier in testimony, you expressed confidence. So do you know those sources?
I do.
Are they within the Department of Defense?
I can't say.
You can't say, or you won't say?
I won't say. Okay,
why not?
Because I protect my sources, and I think the reason.
But you're not naming them. It's a big department, but many of us on my side of the aisle would say it's far too big. So you're talking about the Department of Defense, sources from within the Department of Defense?
I'm not willing to reduce the potential universe of where my sources might be.
Okay, moving on. In this report, Mr. Elizonda, for reference, several types of allegedly alien craft or possibly alien craft or unknown aerial phenomena, what we used to call UFOs, are described. Spheres and orbs, discs and saucers, oval or tic-tac, triangular shape, boomerang and arrowhead, and irregular or organic. Mr. Elizonda, does that summarize to you the types of craft that we're discussing today?
Sir, that is a general morphology, historically speaking, of many UAP.
So those descriptions are very different craft. Is it your assessment that they would come of different origins?
It's possible, but it's also could be in sense a matter of utility. And let me just state for the record, I never read the report that or the article that Mr. Shellenberger put out. The reason
That's a good point. We're just referencing it.
Yes, sir.
For descriptive purposes for the American people. In this report, it's striking to me that regarding the descriptions of experiences with these various craft, several of them include biological effects and several do not. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so spheres and orbs, triangular craft, and irregular or organic craft include some descriptions of biological effects, including feelings of unease, electronic device malfunctions, long-term psychological effects such as anxiety or insomnia have been noted, feeling of being watched, a shared awareness with the triangle craft. So these are very specific descriptions of the reactions of human beings, which allegedly have been noted from a study here, a report.
My understanding is that this is the database is very large. It includes both the images, the videos, the still images, as well as the human intelligence, the reports, the raw data from individuals having these experiences. So in answer to your question, yeah, I mean, I think we're looking at a very large amount of data collected over many decades.
Mr. Gold, if the government doesn't have the data it needs on UAP because, say, someone who saw something is concerned about stigma, public backlash, et cetera, or maybe there's just not good systems in place, how are we supposed to ultimately figure out what's going on?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And let me compliment Administrator Nelson that there wouldn't have been a UAP independent study team if it wasn't for his leadership and courage. We're talking about data and where we can get data from. As I described, NASA has whole archives of data, much of which I believe will likely have information that will help inform UAP. We need only look. We don't know how extensive UAP activity may be over civilian areas. And this is to the second part of your question where we're not collecting the data. We're not collecting sufficient data from pilots. We're not collecting sufficient data from civilian and commercial activities. And this is, again, where ASRS, I think, could substantially change that, get the data out there, and allow us to do good science.
There is also a focus on the craft's technical abilities and whether humans could operate them due to the insane maneuvers that these UAP display. And this is really interesting. This is probably one of the most interesting things about UAPs.
Elizonda, in regards to these aircraft being piloted by whatever they might be, non-human biologics, would you agree that it's likely that they are being piloted by some mind-body connection?
Ma'am, I think it is safe to presume here that they are being intelligently controlled because some cases seem to anticipate our maneuvers. And in other cases, they seem to, I came across an email where the word "stalked" was used in a very secure email between Navy officers discussing their ships being pursued by a UAP.
In our previous panel, we had Grusch, and he had testified to say that some of these were interdimensional beings. Can you speak on that at all?
Ma'am, I'm not qualified, certainly as a scientist or otherwise, to speculate points of origin. I looked at everything from a scientific perspective. So if you look at, for example, instantaneous acceleration, which was one of the observables of the program that I belong to, ATIP, the human body can withstand about 9 G-forces for a short period of time before you suffer negative biological consequences, blackouts and ultimately redouts and even death. Comparison, our best technology, the F-16, which is this older platform, but one of our most highly maneuverable aircraft, manned aircraft, made by General Dynamics, can perform about 17 or 18 G-forces before you start having structural failure, meaning that the airframe begins to disintegrate while you're flying. The vehicles we're talking about are performing in excess of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 Gs.
So would it be safe to infer that they're living craft?
I'm not prepared at this point to state for the record, is something alive or not, because even that definition is hard. There was a time in science we thought that life required oxygen, and we now know that's not true. There are anaerobic bacteria that thrive in oxygen environments that lack oxygen. And so also same with photosynthesis. When I was in college, I was told everything is derived from photosynthesis as a form of energy. In reality, that's not true. There are things that live off of chemosynthesis. So we're constantly having to reevaluate our understanding of what the definition of life is.
Wild.
That is so crazy. It's like fucking mind-blowing.
It really
so
is.
These planes that are capturing these things that we were just watching, they're pulling about 17 Gs. Meanwhile, these orbs, shapes, objects are pulling 2,000 to 3,000 Gs and observed moving at excess of 10,000 to 13,000 miles per hour.
Unbelievable.
This is measured. This is data collected. And then not only are they moving at these high rates of speed, but they are performing maneuvers such as immediate right-hand turns. So they're moving at 2,000 Gs, and then they're immediately like making these turns that would kill humans if we tried to do anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's crazy to think it's real.
I know.
It's crazy to wrap your head around
But
and be like, wow, this shit is real.
Yeah. But it is important to note that military contractors have developed materials that can withstand the kind of G-force mentioned by Elizonda through a sort of liquid metal, which is way beyond my comprehension. But Ian...
Yeah, I kind of don't get it either,
Yeah.
but it's basically like it is a form of metal that is, like a non-Newtonian fluid. Are you guys familiar with that?
Not really.
It's okay. It's like
non-Newtonian fluid.
It's like a substance that when you hit it, when you punch it, it's a solid. But if you touch it really softly, it's a liquid. So it's basically a metal derived from that process to where it can withstand the insane G-force, but then also maintain its shape as metal. So it is effectively like a non-Newtonian metal.
Okay, yeah. I haven't heard it called that, but yes, I have. Now, these metals were developed for artillery and other large payloads to ensure they didn't crumble under pressure en route to the target, and wouldn't change the fact that the human body could not withstand that pressure level. And if these craft are of human origin, they must be unmanned and piloted off-site.
Which is why you heard one of the pilots like, is that a fucking drone?
Yeah.
And I think there's a possibility that some of the stuff that we're seeing could be unmanned drones of some sort. Whether they're, made by humans is another question, but it's possible that they're either unmanned, some type of remotely controlled drones, or, to Congresswoman Luna's comment, are these actually organic, or are these intelligent beings, of some sort, intelligent craft where they're alive.
Yeah.
But this is the shape that they take. I don't know. It's wild because it's also
Beyond
crazy
our
to think that they're seen in all these different shapes. Like every shape you can imagine, there's been a UAP that's been spotted, with like weird, there's one that's kind of like they mentioned like a boomerang. Then there's others that are like almost look like a star, which is so wild. And they change shapes. Like I don't know. It's crazy.
So the other massive piece of really interesting information that was presented at the hearing is Shellenberger and Greenwald 117-page timeline of United States involvement with UAP. Now, obviously, for time's sake, we're not going to be going through the entire timeline also because it would probably be quite boring. But there's a few interesting elements, and we are going to discuss some of the most important finds, such as research into UAP and alleged technology that we have either reverse engineered from extraterrestrial craft or just developed secretly. Now, this timeline begins in July of 1947 with the alleged crash at Roswell, New Mexico, of course. And through FOIA-requested documents and other primary sources, Shellenberger and Greenwald determined that the government was at first open to telling the public that it was indeed a crashed UAP that was recovered near Roswell. Still, that story was changed only a few days later to a crashed weather balloon following conversations between the White House and the DoD. Of course, we have an episode on Roswell. We've covered it many times. We've talked about it so many times.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Yeah. Oh, it's fascinating.
Such a fascinating. I mean, it was clear they're like, public's not ready for this yet.
Yeah.
So it was a weather balloon.
So this brings up two more important points about government involvement with UAP. First, while UAP and aliens have been theorized and seen for most of human history, direct government involvement with UAP began shortly after the U.S. successfully tested the atomic bomb at Los Alamos, New Mexico. Theory goes on to state that extraterrestrials became interested in our military installations following our harnessing of the atom. Though, according to Grusch's testimony last year, the fascist Italian government under Mussolini was able to retrieve a crashed UAP in the 1930s.
Yeah, which a lot of people don't know that there was a recovered UAP before Roswell. It wasn't the very first time that some UAP worldwide was recovered. But the second part of the theory states that UAPs are uniquely interested in our military capabilities, which is why overwhelming reports have been near our military installations. However, this part of the theory could also be easily explained since modern military installations are equipped with an unknown number of camera, sensors, radar. I mean, they've got the most advanced detection technology you could possibly imagine. So it makes sense that military installations are going to be generating the most reports, right? Because they just have the best technology. Meanwhile, we're out there, with our cell phones and our digital cameras trying to capture stuff, and it usually looks like shit when we do it. But following the Roswell incident, U.S. Air Force Lieutenant General Nathan F. Twining wrote that flying discs are, quote, real and not visionary or fictitious, in a letter that ultimately created Project Sign, which directed UAP sighting reports to be sent to several government research and development programs for use in programs around nuclear energy for the propulsion of aircraft. The timeline also states that in 1948, a UAP crash occurred in Laredo, Texas, and led to early government efforts to label flying saucers as, quote, mass hypnosis in order to hide their own UAP crash retrieval programs. The timeline also states that an additional crash occurred at White Sands Proving Ground, and that 5 occupants within were suffocated, and as a result, the bodies had turned blue, but they were reported to being 4 feet tall with oversized heads. Then in 1949, scientist Albert Collins claimed he worked on electromagnetic propulsion at Cal Berkeley and claimed he heard rumors of autopsies of extraterrestrial bodies and that there were flying disc landings at military bases in California and New Mexico.
And then in 1952, a special Air Force study group focused on 9 undersea UAPs reported by the Office of Naval Intelligence, showing that the government was interested in USOs, which is unidentified submersible objects, long before these current hearings. In 1953, an anonymous source claimed that he saw a recovered UAP that had crashed into soft, sandy soil. He stated that the craft had no windows, and the occupants, who were 3.5 feet tall and clad in metallic green uniforms, all died after receiving medical care. The timeline also adds that in 1953, the CIA and USAF sent a joint report to make UAP reports known to the public seem like, quote, poppycock.
Phooey.
Bunch of poppycock.
Yeah.
And obviously that's a strategy that's still used to this day. And in 1955, physicist Lewis Witten was contracted by the Glenn L. Martin Company, which is now known as Lockheed Martin, to develop anti-gravity. In 2013, he stated that this project discovered anti-gravity. However, no written record of his contract or discoveries exists, which is something we have seen many times before. It's also important to note that Lewis Witten is an incredibly respected scientist who is still alive today. He's 103 years old. What a man. What a guy. There are some things in life that are totally fine to take a chance on, like trying a new type of milk in your coffee perhaps, or a cheap Instagram ad impulse buy. But one thing that you really don't want to be taking chances on is your healthcare and your doctors. And with ZocDoc, it's not, because you've got more options than you even know. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and choose the right one for your needs, and then click instantly to book an appointment. And we're talking about in-network appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers across every specialty, everything from mental health to dental health, eye care to skincare, and much more. You can filter for doctors who take your insurance, who are located nearby, who are a good fit for any medical need you may have, and who are highly rated by verified patients. I think that's really the game changer. I mean, pretty much everything these days we want to look at reviews for, like anything we're buying or restaurants we're going to, movies. So why wouldn't you look at reviews on your doctors, friends? You can see their actual appointment openings, choose a time that works for you, and click instantly to book a visit. It's seriously such a seamless process. I've been using ZocDoc for years, far longer than before they even started sponsoring our shows. I truly recommend it. I have found several great medical professionals through ZocDoc, and it's always been an easy experience. Plus, ZocDoc appointments happen fast, typically within 24 to 72 hours of booking, and sometimes you can even score same-day appointments. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/milehigher to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/milehigher, ZocDoc.com/milehigher. In 1955, military contractor Douglas reported working on unconventional propulsion systems by reverse engineering UAP. An engineer who worked on the Douglas programs, William Tompkins, also claimed that they were assisted by, quote, Nordic UAP occupants, which we have talked about Nordic aliens before. But that was while the Air Force and RAND Corporation were working with reptilian UAP occupants. Tompkins also claimed that before the end of World War II, the Germans had aligned themselves with the reptilians, which is crazy that this is an actual official record in Congress.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of, if you go on YouTube, you can find a lot of like video testimonies of a lot of these whistleblowers and some of their stories. It's pretty wild. And again, like the government is like, yeah, crazy old William Tompkins, you know, like, you know, they it's hard because part of me is like, how legit are these stories? Or are they, you know, is this kind of part of the disinformation campaign to kind of like lead us astray from the truth, the reality of things? Or is this actually really what's going on in real accounts? But according to the timeline, Lockheed Martin still has an advantage over other military contractors as they have been in possession of the crash UAPs since the Roswell incident. And this could be in connection with Lockheed's Skunk Works program, the highly advanced section of the company that focuses on experimental means of flight and technologies, best known for the U-2 bomber and the SR-71 Blackbird. Skunk Works projects are so secretive that even VPs within Lockheed are unaware of their activities. According to some theories, Skunk Works was able to reverse engineer working free energy, as theorized by Nikola Tesla, from these crashed UAPs. These are just some of the earliest reports, though, on the timeline, with the most recent entry dated 2023. The full timeline is published in Michael Shellenberger's written testimony for the House, available online. It's a super interesting read, obviously a bit long, but not all the entries come from declassified government documents, so its validity is lacking. That's the main thing you got to think about. They just took all of these whistleblower testimonies and all the information that they've gathered over the years and kind of put it together in a timeline. There's no way to like substantiate a lot of the claims that are made in there. But again, it's very, very interesting. And I mean, it'll definitely give you everything you need to know about UAP reports over the 20th century. So very, very interesting.
And then recently on November 19th, 2024, AARO Director John Kosloski testified before the Senate in two hearings, one closed and one open. Let's take a look at some of that.
On behalf of the department and the entire AARO team, I want to say how grateful we are to Congress for its continued support. Unidentified objects in any domain pose potential threats to U.S. safety and security. Reports of UAP activity, particularly near national security sites, must be treated seriously and investigated with scientific rigor by the U.S. government. By way of introduction, I'm John Kosloski. I'm a researcher at my core with an academic background in mathematics, physics, and engineering. I've spent most of my career at the National Security Agency, leading advanced research in the areas of optics, computing, and cryptomathematics. By nature, I am drawn to tough scientific problems, which is what brought me to AARO and the UAP mission. Since I arrived at AARO in August, I've been impressed by the breadth and depth of my team's experience and the framework they've established to rigorously analyze UAP reports. AARO has taken meaningful steps to improve data collection and retention, bolster sensor development, effectively triage UAP reports, and reduce the stigma of reporting UAP events. Last year, AARO worked with the DoD's Joint Staff to issue guidance to defense personnel worldwide on how to report UAP observations and is working with the military services regarding implementation. AARO has also launched a public website that features UAP imagery, case resolutions, material analysis, archival records, and more. These are only a few examples of AARO's recent progress, and we're just getting started.
And here's Kosloski going through the AARO report, showing trends, shapes, and potential explanations for the phenomena.
Okay, this chart represents the UAP reporting since 1996. And as has previously been discussed by AARO, that sensor placement seems to have caused a bias in our data, both geographic and at altitude. And we're working to resolve that bias in 2025 or reduce that bias through broader engagements with the DoD as well as the IC and the rest of the government, also by incorporating broader sensors into our data and through a public reporting mechanism that we hope to have live in mid-2025. On the left side, it shows the altitudes, and we'll see it's a bit cut off. We'll see that most of the reporting occurs between 15,000 and 25,000 feet. That happens to be where most of our sensors are. And the reporting above and below that is also often coming from those same platforms. In the center, we'll see that the resolved cases have the vast majority being balloons and UAS. We're seeing a great increase in satellites recently, particularly with the launch of mega satellite constellations such as Starlink, where the satellites are catching what is called satellite flares or glint off the sun just after sunset or just before sunrise. And on the rightmost, we'll see the morphology or the shapes that have been reported. The majority have been lights or orbs. We think that there's going to be an increase in the lights with the mega constellations, but our most interesting cases, some of which I'll discuss later, are actually the shapes such as the triangles or the cylinders. And at the bottom, we'll see the geographic bias that I mentioned before, where most of the reports historically had been near the government sites. This bias has been reduced recently by reporting from the FAA. We now get weekly reports from them.
And again, here's Kosloski examining a video of a UAP flying through the plume of smoke emanating from an active volcano. Take a look at this.
An interesting case, which I don't believe the public is familiar with, is captured in 2018 from a UAV flying in the Mediterranean, watching Mount Etna as it was erupting. And it appears that that object is flying through the plume of superheated gas and ash. This was a rather difficult case to resolve. We had to pull in support from a number of IC and S&T partners and even reach out to a volcanologist. And through very detailed 3D modeling and pixel-by-pixel analysis of the object as it's traversing across the clouds, they assessed that the object was actually 170 meters away from the plume and not flying through it. And to be clear, AARO does not believe every object is a bird, a balloon, or a UAV. We do have some very anomalous objects. It's just the nature of resolution. We can only resolve things that we understand. So we're now working on additional products where we can inform the public, Congress, and others of the objects as we're studying them, rather than once we've resolved them.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see because it moves so quickly, but at first it kind of looks like a bird a little bit, but then you realize how fast it's moving, that there's no way it could possibly be a bird flying as fast as it is. But yeah, I do believe there's other reports of UAP being seen around volcanoes and stuff, which is interesting.
Yeah, I remember hearing of some.
But yeah, that's just, they happen to capture that. So again, they don't know what it is at all, but it's just very strange, you know.
The questioning didn't lead to any new information. It just reinforced that AARO is not covering up any government programs and would like the assistance of whistleblowers to assist in the program's research. That's what they claim, at least.
When I was asked by a reporter about it, they said, well, it doesn't show any evidence of secret programs that have aliens. That's not how I read the report. What I read the report is the U.S. government took sightings extremely seriously over the last 75 years, put some of the greatest minds ever to analyze these cases because they assess them as some deeply unknown phenomena that may or may not cause threats, that may or may not be related to adversaries, but are certainly something that the U.S. government needed to know about. And at the base level, we have so many UAPs around our bases, around our military sites, around our nuclear sites, that it's deeply disturbing that adversaries at a minimum could be using these opportunities to spy, to glean intelligence that will harm our long-term national security. So can you tell us about any of the cases that merit further analysis by your IC and science and technology partners? What is it that makes these cases anomalous? And a large number of reports are placed in the active archive because AARO does not have enough information. What might prompt you to reopen a case like that? And do you have any examples?
We do have one example that I'm aware of where we were able to correlate a number of observations of interesting lights in the sky. And eventually we concluded that it was multiple people observing Starlink flares, just as an example. 3 cases that merit analysis that we're working on right now. One we might be in the process of resolving, but nonetheless is still interesting. The first one was brought to us by a law enforcement officer out west, where he observed a large orange orb floating several hundred feet above the ground a couple miles away. He went to investigate what was going on with that orb. And as he was pulling up to the location where he thought would be below the orb, about 40 to 60 meters away from some object the area was well lit, he saw a blacker than black object. He said it was about the size of a Prius, 4 to 6 feet wide. And as he got 40 to 60 meters away from the object, it tilted up about 45 degrees, and then it shot up vertically. He says 10 to 100 times faster than any drone he's ever seen before. And it did that without making a sound as far as he could tell from inside of his vehicle. And just as it left his field of view through his windshield, then it emitted very bright red and blue lights that illuminated the inside of his vehicle as brightly as if someone had set off fireworks just outside his vehicle or street flares. So that's anomalous because of the size of the vehicle with the great acceleration. And when he came back to investigate that area, he found no disturbance of the ground beneath it. So that's one interesting one. Another one comes to us from Southeast US. There was a US facility where 2 cars of government contractors were leaving the facility around 9 o'clock in the morning. They looked up in the sky and saw a large metallic cylinder about the size of a commercial airplane, and it was stationary. They observed that there was a very bright white light behind or around the object. They saw it stationary for 15 to 20 seconds, and then it disappeared. Obviously, an object that large, stationary, unless it's a blimp, is unusual, but then disappearing, we can't explain how that would happen. And then the last case was interesting. We had a aircraft that was flying parallel to another aircraft, and it was capturing imagery of it, and a small-looking object appeared to fly between the two of them much faster than them. Through very careful analysis, we think that the object might have actually been further away than the object that it was videotaping, but it requires very careful analysis to come to those conclusions, and we don't have the metadata to support that.
Now, while most of the questioning focused on resolved AARO reports, it's very important to note that out of 1,600 UAP reports, most were determined as balloon, satellite, or a bird. In contrast, hundreds of others were sent to the active archive, which means that AARO believes that they can be resolved with more materials and personnel, but can't under current circumstances. Still, 21 of those 1,600 are still unresolved, meaning that they were truly abnormal and do not move like anything in our arsenal or in nature. So perhaps 21 of those are just the result of unexplained natural phenomena that we don't understand yet, like ball lightning, or maybe they genuinely are UAP.
Footage we just saw doesn't look a whole lot like natural phenomena to me.
No,
clearly looks like some type of object or entity, maybe. But while both hearings were quite interesting at times, they definitely didn't reach the dramatic heights of last year's Grusch hearing. The primary concern of these hearings was the congressional oversight of hidden Department of Defense programs and budgets. And while this is very, very important and should be made known, it was not the full disclosure the public was hoping for in the wake of David Grusch's hearings. I think we all thought, like Kendall mentioned earlier, that that was the beginning of the dominoes falling, and that we would just be getting more and more compelling evidence and testimony coming out, and that was not the case. We also do not have confirmation of Immaculate Constellation, and many Congress people, if you spend the time to listen to it, and this is why we did this episode to kind of compile the good stuff, because there was just a lot of just people using it as a platform to say a bunch of dumb stuff. For instance, Representative for Colorado, Lauren Boebert, said that she wasn't worried about being put on a list for talking about Immaculate Constellation because she was already on several lists for saying that Joe Biden stole the 2020 election.
She's such a fucking idiot. Sorry.
Good old
Colorado.
Lauren Boebert.
Us Coloradans do not claim her.
No, we do not claim Beaufort.
Then another congresswoman tried to ask if those with religious beliefs who saw UAP were able to ward them off. Which, I mean, okay. Okay. I guess
the power of Christ compels me.
Neither the House nor Senate hearing discussed one very interesting video released at the beginning of 2024, which leads us to UFO reporter and legend George Knapp and UAP researcher / filmmaker Jeremy Corbell, who released footage in January after an anonymous source leaked it to them. And this is probably the coolest thing we'll show you today. The video, shot in thermal vision, shows a jellyfish-shaped object floating through a U.S. military base in Iraq, which reportedly had a CIA black site within. The object floats unopposed through the base while shifting between hot and cold, the thermal vision, with black being hot. It looks like the organic UAP described in Shellenberger's report on Immaculate Constellation. Former Marine Michael Sinkowski confirmed that he was shown the video in 2018 while he was stationed in Iraq. The Pentagon responded to questions about the video's validity with, quote, "No comment."
Love that for us.
But let's watch this. This is very, very interesting, and I don't even really know what to make of this. This is the Jellyfish UFO.
Obviously, there's no sound of this, but
Yeah, so if you're listening, I apologize, but
You should be watching episodes like this. You can watch on Spotify and YouTube.
I think the reason it's called the Jellyfish is because it's clearly got
little tentacles.
like
I
almost like
said testicles.
little tripod-looking legs coming off of it.
That's so cool looking. What the fuck is that?
Nobody knows. Nobody has any clue.
And it's just
beyond us.
flying around. Yeah, look at that thing.
Flying around jellyfish fields.
God, I want to know so bad what the fuck that is.
I know, right?
Because it's so much crazier than even just like the craft that we see, like the gimbal or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
Right.
like literally,
Yeah.
what is that thing?
Just so out of the norm. God, in so many of the videos we've seen over the years, I just want answers. I'm getting so impatient that the UFO, UAP conversation's almost starting to just piss me off lately. Because I thought, for some reason, I thought we would just know a lot more by now.
Well, the interesting thing about this particular video is just a snippet of it.
Yeah.
The source that actually leaked this said that they have a lot more footage.
Of course they do.
And also, after the footage was cut, they observed the object dive into a body of water at a high rate of speed and at a direct downward angle before it then jumps out of the water at even faster rate of acceleration and then goes back into the water. So it like dunks in and out of the water. And so that's why I think the characteristics that this thing is displaying is very odd, and also just the appearance of it is very different than a lot of the other UAP that we've seen. And so I think that's why there's speculation around, is this one of the organic UFOs where this is like potentially a living entity of some sort, whether it's
crazy.
I don't know, whether it's some sort of like conscious droid of some sort, or if this is like,
What if it's really a fucking jellyfish?
I mean, he was
The
in the ocean.
interdimensional-
an undiscovered
Yeah,
jellyfish.
Yeah, it can fly.
That'd be
you know,
wild.
but on the real, maybe it is shaped that way so that it can, propel under the water faster.
Yeah.
The tentacles.
Yeah. It's
No, who fucking knows? It's so wild.
It kind of looks like a Lovecraftian demon, like those old, like the big squid
Yeah.
monsters or whatever,
Yes.
like unfathomable horrors style.
But it flies.
But it flies.
At speeds we cannot understand. God, unreal. I just want to fucking know.
And the fact that it switches so quick between hot and cold, too.
Yeah.
yeah, it can.
And for what?
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
For why?
Why are you doing that?
Well, probably because if it really does go underwater, because it gets so cold deep down, and then obviously it's
Yeah, but
higher
even when
you go
it's
up in the
just
sky.
floating in the air, you can see it going from hot
Yeah,
to
it
cold.
like,
Yeah,
over and over again.
right. Yeah.
and it almost looks like it's like visible, invisible. It just, I don't know, defies all explanation.
So cool.
If
Is it an
the
alien?
driver of this craft is watching, please
Reach
tell
out.
us what's going on.
If it has a driver.
Right.
If it even has a driver. I think to assume all these things have
Right.
pilots is, I don't know.
Yep.
I think there's possibly a lot of these things don't have
Or
pilots.
is the thing itself
Yeah.
the thing that's alive?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Could be. God.
But this is one of the clearest videos we've gotten in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And also one of the strangest.
Yeah.
Because it's very just different than anything we've seen before.
Mhm.
And because it's shifting in temperature, that's why people, speculate that this thing is organic in some way, shape, or form.
Well,
So
maybe we'll get some answers in the next 4 years. Trump does say he's going to go in and declassify a
Yeah, I
bunch of
was gonna
shit. He
bring-
said JFK files day one. Let's go,
Yeah,
baby.
let's hold him to
I want
it,
to see
man.
it.
well, it's interesting too, because when he went on Joe Rogan, Joe,
Yeah.
of course, brought up, what'd you see
Yeah, 'cause
about
he said he was going
UFOs?
to release them the first time too.
And Trump said, he was like, well, I was going to release UFO files, but he always does this too, some very good people, some that you would like.
No, he said this about the JFK.
No, he said it about the UFO stuff too.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. He said they advised him not to. That basically he was going to release UFO files as well.
So nice people
and
told him
people
not
were
to.
like, yeah, probably shouldn't do it. And so to appease these, I assume, high-ranking military personnel, he decided not to. But then he said, well, this time, who cares?
Fuck it.
Got nothing to lose. Fuck around and find out. Here comes the UFO files and JFK files.
Well,
so.
I could be down with that. I mean, when it came to the JFK files, he said on Rogan that the reason he couldn't release them last time was because there were people that would be disclosed who are still alive. But now, I don't know if they're dead now or what, or he just doesn't care now. But he said, he said day one. So I'm expecting that shit by January 21st.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
Well,
We
and
can all agree.
it's interesting too, just the whole question of how much do the presidents know? And Lou Elizondo was talking about how not every president knows anything at all. Like some presidents don't even ask to be read in or have a briefing on UAPs, UFOs.
Man, that's the first thing I would do.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I don't think they get to know a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think that's what we've learned over the years looking into all these. And, what do we know really?
He
At the
said
end of the
that-
day, we're just podcasters, but it seems like the president's really just a puppet, a figurehead, that they're not the top that is being clued into everything. There's so
he
many
mentioned
why would it be public? The people who are the most powerful, why would we even
No,
know?
true.
We don't know who they are.
Yeah, because Obama asked about UFOs and they told him a little bit of stuff. And he knows some stuff that that is classified that he can't talk about because he gets asked on late night shows all the time to talk about it. And he says he knows some
They all
stuff.
do too. Clinton was, I remember.
Jimmy Carter was a big one. Jimmy Carter was briefed.
Shout out, still alive.
Yeah.
Still kicking. Good man.
I don't know, man. I really, the longer this goes on, the more I believe in a majority of this activity is interdimensional and that these are interdimensional entities. But then again, the whole non-human biologics is interesting. And could it be a combo? I mean, what are the chances? We've got visitors from other dimensions. We've got freaking extraterrestrials from other star systems.
I think chances are, with how vast it all is, that it's probably a combo of everything.
Well, the one thing that's really compelling to me about the argument of these are interdimensional entities, some of these UAPs, is around the whole nuclear question of nuclear sites in multiple countries around the world being watched, disabled even by these UAPs.
There's a well-documented history of that, which I know we've gone over on the show many of times.
But the interesting, I think, and people ask, well, why are they interested in nuclear?
Because they're interested in us not blowing our dumbasses up.
But is it really about us, you think? Or is it about them? Because if they're interdimensional, here's the interesting thing about nuclear explosions. Did a little research on this. So the EMP, the electromagnetic energy, that the blast afterwards, there's this pulse that happens. And the issue is that this EMP that happens after a nuclear explosion permeates into other dimensions and other frequencies. And so there's people that speculate that these interdimensional entities don't want us, because they're here existing, just within different dimensions and different frequencies, but still existing within the same world, I guess you could say, that if we were to set off nuclear bombs, that it would affect them as well, even in these other, dimensions and other frequencies.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because then there's a whole rabbit hole you can dive into of different entities existing at different frequencies, like high frequencies, low frequencies. I know we've talked about a little bit in the past, but different types of entities exist at higher, lower frequencies depending on what they are and whether they're malevolent or benevolent entities. And so I think it's interesting because I think it is a way to look at it and how it ties in everything else, all this other paranormal activity that we've experienced over since the beginning of time, that it's all kind of intertwined and not necessarily visitors from another planet, but just something to think about. But it does explain, the interdimensional UFO hypothesis does explain why they're so worried about the nuclear installations and all of our military operations, the atomic bomb, because when this type of energy goes off, it permeates into the other dimensions and frequencies that they either live or, reside on. And so it affects them negatively.
Yeah, I'm definitely open to that theory. That's interesting to think about. I always personally just go back to, and I think it's because Dr. Greer, and he's a controversial guy and whatever. People have different opinions, and I haven't really caught up on his latest whatever. But
there's some
he was what really got me super interested in this entire topic in the beginning, and I think his theories just comfort me. And that's why I like to lean towards
that the ETs are all peaceful.
Yeah, that
and
there's no threats in the universe. They're all looking out for us, and they're stopping us from destroying ourselves because we, for some reason, have some sort of value to them, or we are part of them. That we share DNA with them, or we're an offshoot of them. We were created by them. Get into panspermia theory and all.
Or
of
they
that.
fucking want to harvest our souls.
Or that
they are interested in our souls and why we operate the way that we do, because maybe these other beings don't have the same type of consciousness.
Yes. And that is something he's brought up as well too. And they're interested in our human empathy.
It's a consciousness thing.
Mm-hmm.
The rabbit hole is deep, man.
Helps me sleep better at night thinking that there's these
guardian
beings
aliens
in the sky
out there
that are keeping us. That they'll fix climate change and keep us from blowing ourselves up. I don't know. That's just the one that I like the most. Helps me sleep.
I'm down with that. I would love for that to be true.
I like the hopeful. I don't like the Mars attack style aliens.
No. Yeah,
that just blow up our heads.
I don't want to believe in anything evil.
No.
But I obviously do, because
evil is very real.
It's got to exist, right?
Very
Good
real.
and evil.
There has to be a balance.
It's a duality.
It's the law
man.
of the universe. But yeah, Dr. Greer's an interesting cat. I'd love to still get him on the show, even though he's, I don't know, whatever. People feel all types of ways about him. How do you guys feel about Dr. Greer these days?
Oh, don't even start me on that. I went down a whole rabbit hole at that, and there's a lot to unpack on that topic.
He's interesting.
There's a lot of there's some people out there that think he's just a charlatan.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, I think anyone in this field gets called a charlatan at some point too.
Yeah, but
not that I'm like a Dr. Greer super fan or anything. I just think he's so interesting. The way he presents it is very digestible
it's compelling.
And I would just love to talk to him, whether or not he's full of shit or not. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, you guys, let us know what you think of these latest hearings.
What do you think UAPs are? What is your theory? What side do you land on? You think it's extraterrestrials from other planets, interdimensional entities? Could it be just human technology that we just don't know about?
I want to know what you guys think about the jellyfish. And I want to know what you guys think about what the fuck is going on in our oceans.
Yeah, there's so much we don't know about that. Look up. Here's a cool little video to look up when you're done watching this, though. Northrop Grumman just developed something called the manta ray.
Northrop Grumman?
Northrop Grumman.
Grumman?
Grumman.
Okay, I'm just making sure they can hear it so that they can look it up.
Northrop Grumman.
Okay.
It's like Lockheed Martin. It's a DoD contractor.
Oh, yeah.
They just created an unmanned submersible called the manta ray. This thing is sick as fuck.
Yeah, it is.
It looks like
Can we
a
just pull it up real fast?
manta ray.
Really quick.
Swimming through the water.
Almost out of time, but
underwater drone.
I want to see this.
But it just goes to show some of the cool technology that we're developing. So I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibilities that there's engineered UAP technology.
Nothing's out of the realm of
Type
possibilities.
in Northrop Grumman.
How do you spell
North
ROP.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah. Check this thing out.
The first of its kind underwater glider is here. Manta Ray is a new type of uncrewed underwater vehicle, or UUV. We successfully tested in open water for the first time.
Insane.
So cool.
Manta Ray is designed with cutting-edge underwater glider technology that has never been
It's
applied
just too bad
at
that all this
scale
cool shit
by
is
incorporating
weapons.
numerous
Like, that's
technologies
just make it
and
more
plain
I know,
once.
right?
Make it a excursion.
Yeah,
on vacation.
Travel long distances at
Take
a
it down to see the
variety of depths.
Titanic.
One day, I
Anchor
bet
to
you
the
some of this will
seafloor
be
and
tourism.
hibernate
Totally.
until
Oh,
needed.
yeah.
Manta Ray will support challenging undersea missions where humans can't go.
Cool.
Really, really cool stuff. So who knows? Who really knows what all this shit is?
Well, let us know what you guys think. That is going to be it for us today, you guys. We hope you're having a great week. We will see you next week. But until then,
Keep on taking your mind a mile.
wow.
Don't put that
Wow.
in.
His mind has exploded after all of that.